That's a great introduction, and I think what I would like to hear your thoughts, Elizabeth, on, do you think it's because like the hurdles we face today is due to insulin being a really something that's pharma dominated, in terms of they're the only ones producing insulin, and where are we at in terms of seeing generic insulins and things like that? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
First I was sort of talking about where we are and now the why. Why is it so difficult for people to access or afford? And so, yeah, I think you touched on a few very important points. Price, as I said, and cost is a huge thing. So if you simply can't afford something, you're pretty much out of luck unless you're lucky enough to get donations or something like that, which is a whole other topic to discuss. But it is very much the insulin distribution is dominated. 90% of insulins are from the big three insulin makers, which is Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi. And it's really, really tough for other players to get into that market because it's really dominated by these three players. So when we're talking about generic medication as well, when it comes to insulin, it's a bit different. It's not technically called a generic, it's called a biosimilar. And biosimilars have a lot of their own challenges because you're kind of having to look at the drug molecule and makeup. So when you're creating a biosimilar, we like to say it's like you're trying to bake the same cake, but you have to find a different recipe for that cake, and you're kind of out on your own trying to do that. So it puts off a lot of companies from really wanting to do that because they have to go through the same testing, the same trials, the same regulation processes, FDA approvals, all of that a brand new drug would, which is very, very expensive, as opposed to when you are creating a generic, it's more just like a copy. So that whole scene is very complex, and that's another reason why I think we're seeing very high prices with insulin. But that is definitely one piece. I mean, we need transparency from pharmaceutical companies to be able to understand why this pricing is the way it is. Why are people in one country paying, for example, $5 for a vial of insulin, and people in another place are paying $100? So pushing for pharmaceutical transparency is huge. But then there are a lot of other things to look at in terms of why access is a problem. Maybe there's not enough government spending. Maybe the supply chain isn't a strong one. So actually getting the insulin to a rural clinic is a huge challenge, or keeping insulin cold, or some people are living in, crisis situations where they're getting insulin is on a long-term sustainable basis is a huge challenge. So yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, Ash, pharma dominance is a huge thing, and that can make a huge difference in this issue. But there are a lot of other complex issues to look at as well.